What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cap Show. UFC 302 was iconic. Shout out to Islam Makhachev defeating Dustin Poirier in the 5th round by submission choke. I knew this was going to happen. That's why Vegas told us the odds of Poirier winning was like plus 500. It made sense to me. Poirier does not do well against wrestlers, and Islam's a great wrestler, a great grappler. Learned from his daddy Khabib, and really, Islam, he wants to become double champion. And I think for Islam, what's next for him is to go up in weight. Go up to 170, challenge yourself. I do think he can beat the current champion in Leon Edwards. I do want to see him fight guys like Kamaru Usman, even though Kamaru Usman is past his prime. Fight guys like Colby Covington. Everybody hates on Colby Covington. He's a great wrestler. I'd love to see Colby Covington in an Islam matchup. That'd be interesting as well. But I just think for Islam, he's the pound for pound number one. And I kind of agree with Dana White. The pound for pound number one is Jon Jones. I mean, as long as Jon Jones is in the UFC and fighting, he's the number one guy. Jon Jones has never lost a fight. He's fought champion after champion. He's the GOAT of the UFC. I mean, who other has done what Jon Jones has done? I understand outside the octagon, he's gotten some trouble, dealing with DUI, stuff like that, but that's in the past, and I do think Jon Jones has overcome those adversities. But I just think, imagine if Jon Jones never got in trouble like that. He could arguably be the greatest all time in just every single sport out there, not just UFC, dude. Like, if Jon Jones would have handled business outside of the octagon, but he didn't. But at the end of the day, the pound for pound number one is definitely Jon Jones. He's never lost a fight. We look at Islam, his group of work. I mean, he's done great things. He's 26-1 in the UFC. His only one loss is from a knockout. Looked like a punch he didn't see. He got slapped pretty easily. This was back in 2015, but Islam, what's next for him is to go up in weight. That's what Islam needs to do. Shout out to Dustin Poirier. What a career he's had in the UFC. Put on some huge fights. Fought McGregor 3 or 4 times. I mean, really had a lot of revenue in the UFC. I do think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in the UFC. Why would he not? After big fights, Poirier just put on some great performances, even though he's come up short a lot of the times. He has 9 losses on his record, 30 wins. He's put in the work. He's been fighting since a young teenager. Great career for Dustin Poirier, but I do think he's past the hill. He's 35 years old. I do think he should hang it up. It's that time, Dustin Poirier. It's that time to hang it up and say, hey, let me go off in different avenues. Let me become a commentator in the UFC. Something like a Daniel Cormier type of guy. Go in that revenue. But I just think overall to be guys like Tony Ferguson, who's in there literally getting CTE, who looks like he's going to die by the age of 45, dude. Like, dude, you don't want to be like Tony Ferguson. Even though I love Tony Ferguson, he's put on some great fights for the UFC, but he should have retired like 3 or 4 years ago. And it's like, oh my gosh, he's skinny now. Like, he does not look good, looks ran down. Like, I don't want to see Dustin Poirier be like a Tony Ferguson-like fighter. Like, no, bro. Like, retire when it's good, dude. Like, your money's good, everything's good in your life. Dustin Poirier, just hang it up. Like, you have nothing else to prove. Like, you didn't win the belt. Like, that's it, dude. Like, it's over with. Like, your prime is done. Don't be like Tony Ferguson where he should have retired years ago. Now it looks like he's going to develop some type of CTE, man. It just does not look good. It really doesn't. But Islam, man, I think he's going to defend his belt a couple more times at 155, then go up and wait. Challenge yourself. If you want to become double champion, don't go down to 145. Like, come on. I think UFC at one point when Royce Gracie fought, they were fighting at no weight class. Like, these guys were fighting like 155ers were fighting like guys like 300 pounds almost. Like, that would be great, right? Like, watch them die in there, dude. Like, that's what we want to see, right? Like, as back in the old Egyptian days where they'd fight in the Colosseums where they would just fight to the death, dude. Like, let's have a no weight class. Like, that'd be crazy, right? A 155er versus a 205er. That'd be insane. But, Dana White and the UFC, they know what they're doing. They're never going to do that. But that'd be crazy, right? It's no weight class. Anybody can sign up. Just go. Just go do it. We don't have to have scales. True gladiators do not need scales. But for Islam, go up to 170, challenge yourself. I think that's what's next for him, man. It's been great. He's on a 14-fight win streak now. 12 wins by submission. And he submitted Dustin Poirier in the 5th round for a choke. It was just it was a masterclass by Islam. 147 total strikes that landed on Dustin Poirier to Dustin Poirier's 104 total strikes. The ground control over 10 minutes for Islam. It was just a completely domination for Islam. That's what he does. Like, he's just an expert. He learns from his daddy, Khabib. Khabib just training him well, knows what he's doing, knows all the aspects, all the weaknesses in his opponent. And he said, you know what? I'm going to take him down. He shot for 16 shots. 5 of them were successful in Islam. 10 minutes of ground control on Poirier. Just manhandled him. Just a masterclass performance by Islam. And I knew it was coming. That's why I said go Islam. My heart wanted Dustin Poirier by knockout. There was a slight chance, but I just knew Dustin Poirier does not do well against wrestlers. That's the difference there. He just does not do well with wrestlers. And ever since then, it's just like, hey, if you're going against a wrestler and you're Dustin Poirier, you're going to take an L. That's just what's going to happen. So shout to Islam Makhachev, man, getting the job done, following in Khabib's footsteps. He's the current champion at 155. I do think go to 170, even though the pound-for-pound rankings put Islam at number 1, even though, like Dana White said, John Jones is the GOAT, never lost one time. John Jones should be number 1 up there. Not Islam, John Jones. So shout to John Jones, the GOAT, the greatest UFC fighter that I've ever seen, dude. Even outside the octagon, I understand he got in some, bad situations like that. But, hey, John Jones put it past him. He's still the GOAT. Even though, I don't understand the pound-for-pound rankings. I really don't. If Islam's a pound-for-pound number 1, go to 170 then. John Jones went up. John Jones literally ran the light heavyweight division for 10-plus years. And he said, I'm getting bored here winning, so I'm going to go up to heavyweight and beat the number 1 guy at heavyweight in Cyril Gane. Made him look, in 2 minutes, made him look like a girl, and tapped him out. Tapped him out within 2 minutes. It's crazy, right? But I just think Islam, go to 170. If you want to become double champion like a Conor McGregor, go up and wait. That's what you're going to have to do. So I can't wait to see what's next for Islam. But Dustin Poirier needs to hang it up. Hey, shout out to Dustin Poirier. What a time. What a career he's had in the UFC. And then we got Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. I knew Sean Strickland would get the dub. My first 3 fights, the main 3 fights, I got them all right. It's nice when you hit your bets. Sean Strickland, 29-6 now. I do think what's next for Sean Strickland, I think he should get the winner of Duplessis and Israel Adesanya. I do think that's what's next for him at 185. I think that makes sense for me, even though if Chimaev wins coming up, he fights in a couple weeks. I think for Chimaev, I think he throw him in there as well. I'm talking 185ers, man. This division is stacked here. Duplessis, Israel Adesanya, you got Chimaev, you got Sean Strickland. Even though Paul Costa's washed now, Paul Costa, when he first came into the UFC, he was hungry. He was that hungry fighter. He wanted to fight everybody. But now I'm just looking at him like, man, he just looks like he's steroided up. It's like, man, bro, like drinking all that juice. He looks like he's shooting up in his ass, testosterone shots, all this stuff. He's more worried about his physique. He's not winning fights anymore. I could see Paul Costa eventually just, being one of those guys where it's like, he's a top 10, top 15 guy, but he won't be in the top 5 anymore. I'm looking at Paul Costa thinking, dude, like, you lost to Izzy, you got raped by Izzy, and ever since the Izzy Adesanya loss, you just haven't been the same. Lost to Robert Whittaker in February. Whittaker's fighting Chimaev in a couple weeks. That's going to be a great fight. But for Paul Costa, man, it's over with. I think his career is basically over. Like, I don't see him ever getting the belt. I don't see him ever coming back from the Israel Adesanya defeat. I just don't. I don't ever see that happening. But Sean Strickland looked nice. He looked ready. He just looked great, man. He just had a great game plan against Paul Costa, man. He really did. He had 182 total strikes on Paul Costa to Paul Costa's 158 total strikes. He had 104 headshots on Paul Costa, even though Costa had 84 body shots on Sean Strickland. But overall, it was just a masterclass by Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland was the aggressive fighter. He was the guy that initiated the contact. And in that last round, we saw Sean Strickland go at Paul Costa. Paul Costa was backing up. It was just like, holy cow. It's just so different, right? We see Sean Strickland really being the aggressor this whole fight, put his foot on the gas and said, let's fight here. He brought the fight to Paul Costa. Paul Costa was on the back. He just kept going, retrieving. So it's just like we knew Sean Strickland, this fight, Sean Strickland was hungry. He was hungry for it. He said, you know what, I want to win here, and this is how I'm going to win the fight, is my foot on the gas and literally throwing crazy shots, all the crazy overhand hooks that Sean Strickland loves to throw those leg kicks as well, loves to go to the body. So I think Sean Strickland, what's next for him is fight Duplessis or Israel Adesanya. That's what I think's next for Sean Strickland. But as far as Paul Costa goes, fight the loser of Whittaker in Chimaev. And I think that'll be Whittaker. Maybe get a rematch with Whittaker. But I just see Paul Costa right now he's just fallen off, dude. Like, I have no other way to say it. Like, ever since Israel Adesanya, ever since he raped him, it was just like, holy cow, dude, he's not the same fighter anymore. He's just not. Paul Koska's trash now. Shout out to Sean Strickland. I do think the winner of those fights, he's going to get a shot at the belt again. You know, Sean Strickland deserves it. After this fight, the performance he put on with Donald Trump in attendance, he was ready for it. So shout out to Sean Strickland. He was hungry. He got the job done. Sean Strickland, you took off. Let's go. And then we got Kevin Holland, man, getting the job done in the first round by armbar submission. Kevin Holland, 26-11. Probably Kevin Holland, ever since like 2021, he's probably been the most active fighter on the UFC roster. He really has. I mean, he's fought so many fights. Even he fought Chimaev a couple years ago, even though he lost in the Chimaev fight. Overall, it's just like, dude, Kevin Holland's very active. And I love that about Kevin Holland. And I think Dana White respects that. I think Dana White wants fighters to be active all the time. He wants fighters to be fighting, you know, literally like 4 or 5 times a year. You know, whereas a champion fights a couple times a year, even though I do think current champions right now should be fighting 3 times a year at least, dude. You know, you really 3 times, 3+ times a year. I'd love to see champions fight 4 times. I think to be active, to be a great UFC fighter, you have to be active. If you're only fighting once a year, you know, once every couple of years, you're going to get rusty and you're not going to be as sharp. You're just not. I mean, look, guys like Max Holloway. It made sense how he won UFC 300 by knockout against Gaethje because he's sharp. He's been fighting. He's been putting on these fights year after year. He's just sharpening his tool. That's how Max Holloway wins, dude. Shout out to Max Holloway. I can't see it. The future's bright for that young man as well. So many open doors. You know, he could go down to 145, fight the current champion, which I do think he's going to run right through him. Or he could go up to 170 and fight McGregor. Even though I don't see that happening, I think if he does fight McGregor for the second time, Max Holloway needs to go down to 155. 155 for that fight. Who knows what's going to happen next? But, you know, look, the UFC and Dana White, they know what they're doing. They're making millions every single time that these guys fight. They just put on great fights, and Islam Makhachev put on an excellent grade A performance here. He said, you know what, I'm the champion for a reason. No one's going to beat me at 155, and that's literally what Islam said here. And I knew he'd run right through Poirier. Poirier needs to retire, but really some big fights coming up. We got Chimaev Whitaker coming up. Then we got the McGregor-Michael Chandler at UFC 303. That's going to be iconic. Already sold out. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see McGregor finally back after 3 years. We had to give respect to McGregor. McGregor literally built the UFC to where it is at today. Without McGregor, the fighters wouldn't be getting paid as much. The viewers wouldn't be in tune as much as they are because of McGregor. When McGregor first came on the scene back in 2014, 2015, when he started to blow up, when he knocked out Aldo, it was like, holy cow. The UFC just blew up ever since McGregor. A lot of people hate McGregor, but McGregor, he's a smart businessman, and he's great for the UFC, and he's got at least 2 fights left on the UFC contract, so it's going to be interesting. But I love McGregor at UFC 303. I cannot wait. Shout out to Islam. What a time. It's the Clown with Cab show. Let's go!